Hello there. Okay, welcome to another ad hoc desktop installment of MilgeekAchoo. In fact, it's my mail call, a much overdue mail call, as I haven't done one of these in quite a few months, but I thought I'd save up some of the items until I got something fairly substantial and interesting to show you. So this isn't just this month's purchases. I can't afford to do that. This is actually items that I've collected over the past couple of months. Okay, without further ado, let's get straight on. And this kind of like marks a theme for this first section of this mail call, because it's all about vehicles. Now, I bought this little Gauge Master roll of temporary roading because I'd like to apply something a bit more interesting when I assemble my temporary layouts to show you stuff. I want to start putting down some roads and things like that, maybe some trees in a temporary fashion, just to give the temporary layout that I make a little bit more interest. I also wanted to look at roads, the size of roads, and how to make them up for when I start scratch building my own roads for my permanent layout. So this is a good template for that. As you see, I forget how long it is. It's a metre long, so I can cut this up and make temporary roads out of this to pop on the little cars, which is the next bit. Now, as you know, I'll just bring these back on, which I know you've seen before, but this is where I began with my car collection. Now, you might remember these. I 3D printed these. This was the last version that I did, where I really sort of got to grips with how to do, for example, the semi-transparent windows and things like that, round wheels, which is a bit fiddly with the 3D printer I have. I'm not hugely experienced with 3D printing, so this was the culmination of all the experiments that I did to assemble a collection of little N-gauge cars for my layout. Now, having said that, and having been very happy with, I like this lovely little pickup truck that I made. I was really pleased with that. And of course, I know you've seen all this before, but I still can't help being really chuffed. Now, this was an earlier version before I figured out transparent windows, but it's my little Japanese rural police car, and I'm still really chuffed to bits with that. But I did want to get to the point where I assembled some proper vehicles. And where I started with this, and what put me down this road, was I picked up these Oxford model N-gauge vehicles. This is a Hillman Imp, by the way. There you go. It's a claim to fame being the be-all and end-all of Scottish car manufacture. They were actually made up my end of the country with these Hillman Imps. They have a mixed reputation, shall we say. But it looked like, despite the fact that it's a pretty British kind of 1960s, 1970s car, it looked the part for a 1970s Japanese car. It's a little compact saloon. So I thought I'd pick that up, and I couldn't resist, of course, and I know you've seen this before as well. This little MG. Again, Oxford Motors. Fantastic model. The detail on this it's just superb. It's lovely. But, and here's the point, these little Oxford Motors, despite being tiny, are about £6 a pop. Now, as you can imagine, trying to populate your layout with a load of these would cost a fortune, and that's what took me down the route of seeing if I could make my own, until I found a source of affordable N-gauge cars, particularly Japanese. And that eventually happened because I found this Kato set, which is 6 Toyota Crowns. Now, having so many models of the same make of car, isn't exactly ideal, but it does give me authentic Japanese models to go on with for my layout. And the most recent acquisition was this lovely little set sent down by my brother. Now, unfortunately, this is all in Japanese. This Tomix set is all in Japanese, so I'm not exactly sure what models these are, whether they're Toyotas or Datsuns or whatever. But they do look the part as fairly ubiquitous 1970s boxy saloons. And it's nice to have a bit of a change of shape for the layout. Nice little set. I don't know if these are still in production, but lovely little set. And carrying on down this road, if you'll excuse the pun, was my need for trucks. Now, I did have a crack at making some trucks. Here's my original go. Now, this was one of my very first 3D models, so it's very, very rough. My model making in 3D isn't fantastic, but it's got kind of like a 1960s charm to it, I suppose you could say. And at arm's length, which is how you're meant to see these little models, I guess it doesn't look too bad. It was a bit of filler, but I was really after a proper truck. And again, in the same package that my brother sent down these cars in, he sent me down this little truck as well. Again, I'm sorry, this is in Japanese. I should actually Google this to find out the actual names. You can see the set name there. And again, I think these are out of production now. I'm not sure. Now, the only thing was, now I did want a big long truck, and as you can see, this is a very long wheelbase truck, but I wasn't sure about the containers. Now, as far as I can remember, now my layout is supposed to be of the 1970s, early 1970s to mid 1970s, and being brought up in Scotland in the 1960s and 70s, I can't remember seeing containerized freight like this back then. I thought it was a newer thing, 1980s, 1990s. But as a matter of fact, and I did look this up, Wikipedia did tell me that containerized freight like this actually stems from the 1960s. In fact, it originally stemmed from World War II, and I believe it was the US Navy that came up with this original idea, which commercial firms took over after the war, and it was popularized in the 1960s. So it does actually fit into the era of the layout that I want to make. I thought it was a newer thing, and I hadn't even thought about adding containerized trucks to my layout. But of course, now I can. What I really wanted this long truck for was to go with my sawmill to put planks on for delivery. But there you go. I'll have to start thinking about maybe containerized wagons to add to my fleet. Who knows? So there we go. Everything to do with little cars at the moment, apart from this one thing, which I hope I haven't lost. I haven't, and I couldn't resist this. And I know this is British, not Japanese, but I saw this in my local model shop and I had to have it. This is a lot of nostalgia for me because, again, going back into my childhood, being brought up in Dundee in the 1960s, we had a bus station in Dundee, a very famous bus station in Dundee, which everybody knew, and we had lots of these coaches of this kind of like shape. I think I can open this one up actually. Let's have a look. Yeah, we can. That's better. You'll be able to see it without the reflections now. Now what's this again? It's Harrington Cavalier, Maidstone and District. Now I'm not sure which is the name of the actual bus company and which is the name of the bus, but it's that beautiful 1960s, 1970s aesthetic for buses at the time. And I think I can remember the bus company. Was it Bluebell for northeast Scotland that stopped in Dundee. All these blue buses, but all these kind of like 60s and 70s shapes, before they became just boxes on wheels. And despite the fact that it's obviously very British, the colour scheme and the aesthetic of the design of the bus was pretty generic worldwide. And I have looked up Japanese buses of the period, and there's several that look exactly like this. And at that distance, again, on my layout, you won't be able to tell, but it's such a lovely piece. I can resist this. So this, alongside of the nice big truck that my brother sent me, gives me templates for making 3D models of slightly larger vehicles. So that's my traffic. Okay, I've cleared the decks here because we go on to the next element of this mail call, but again in the same theme of miniature vehicles for my N-gauge layout, but instead of sort of cars and buses and trucks, we're now looking at work vehicles, because I required some vehicles for my little sawmill industry model that I'm making for my layout. And I looked around at some reference material, the kind of vehicles that would go nicely with my sawmill, and I found these. Now, this is by a company called engagemodels.com, and when I saw these, as much as I like scratch building my own stuff, I do like buying a kind of template on which to base my models, but I just bought these straight off to use because these are superb. Just have a look at this grabber. Now obviously I need something that will move the logs. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat here. Oh god, we've become Ian Fleming. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, I obviously need something to transfer the logs from my wagons into the mill yard, the timber yard, and I saw this grabber, and this was exactly the sort of thing that I wanted. Now the thing I like about these models from this company is you can buy these unpainted. I think they're resin casts or 3D printed, so you can buy them bare to paint yourself. But I bought the painted ones, which, yes, it's a bit more money, but just I couldn't paint this any better than this myself. I really couldn't. It's such a great job because they've actually included weathering. I don't know if you can see that. It looks the part straight out the box. This can go straight on the layout, nothing else to do to it, and it's such a brilliant model. Really lovely. I just have to have them. In fact, I ended up buying another model from them because I was just so impressed by them. And again, this is to go, if I can get this packet open. I should have opened these first. Let's see if I can get this out of here. There we go. I thought I needed something to move the planks in the timber yard. I was looking originally at those little forklift trucks. I was even considering again making them myself, but I found this in that range from Engage Models. And again, already painted and weathered. It looks the part. I have nothing to do with it. Just look at those chunky wheels. They're brilliant. Really, really does look the part. So I just have to lay this down in my sawmill when it's finished, and these together just look fantastic. But there was one more vehicle that I want. Well, there's a couple more. Again, going back to that lorry that I showed you earlier, I was thinking about having lorries to take the timber planks out of the yard. So that's a possibility. But the other vehicle that I really wanted was a little dump truck, because in my research I saw that sawmills, they have to get rid of all the chippings and sawdust. And the way they do this, I've seen it in a lot of the reference photos, is by using these little dumper trucks. And I saw this one, Danny, on his dumper truck, by Westhill Wagons, wagonworks.co.uk. And this is a little 3D printed, I think it's a resin print of a dump truck. Look how brilliant that is. Isn't that cute? Obviously, unlike engagemodels.com, which I think these are 3D printed as well, I'm not sure, where these come finished for you. These are slightly cheaper, but it comes in its original printed state, so it's still got the supports on, which you have to remove. And then I've got the big challenge of seeing if I can paint with my chunky sausage fingers this dumper to look as cool as these models. But you can see the little dumper, and that'll be great. And I'll do like little piles of sawdust around the mill and have this transporting the sawdust round to I don't know, some sort of dumping ground for the sawdust. But it's a lovely little model. Look how delicate that is at N gauge. Fantastic. Now, there is obviously this normal problem we had. These are obviously British models, so they're British N gauge, 1/148th scale, as opposed to the continental N gauge, which is 1/150th scale. But yeah, particularly when you look at this dump truck and the figure, which that's a brilliant segue, and I didn't mean that because this is all, as you can tell, unscripted. I actually bought, again, to give me some reference, the MilgeekAchoo continental N gauge sized N gauge figures, so I can do measurements for any scratch building. And I think you can tell if you look at the driver, which is supposed to be British N gauge there, and these figures, which are the continental N gauge, you can't really, I don't think you can tell the difference. So that all worked out very, very nicely. And that is it for vehicles, I believe. I don't think I've got anything else to show you there. So we'll go on to the next item. Okay, up next we move from cars to trains. In fact, we move on to some new rolling stock that I've received from my brother, who's a bit of a eBay demon. I can never seem to find anything worthwhile on eBay, but he always picks me up a really nice bargain. And this trio of oil transportation wagons was a real steal, but there's a reason for it, and I don't know if you've already picked up why that is. They're all supposed to be equipped with these little ladders that go up to the gantry on the top of the wagon, but some of these wagons are either broken or hanging on by a thread, really, and in some cases are missing altogether. So although I got a really good deal on these, and it's great because it makes up a nice rake of wagons for a oil transportation train, I will have to actually repair these by getting some new ladders. Now, I went on eBay and I did manage to find some metal etched N gauge ladders, but being metal etched, these are flat, so I wasn't quite sure whether they'd actually suit these particular models. So I went back again, and from, of course, good old P&D Marsh, I managed to find these white metal N gauge ladders, which will probably match these little wagons a lot better. So I can actually repair all of it. I'll replace all of them so they all match. So that's a little mission for me. But still, even with the extra cost of buying the replacement ladders, this is still a brilliant bargain. So I'm very grateful to my brother for that. And setting these aside, another little gift from my brother. I don't know how he finds this stuff, I really don't. But this is a little brake wagon, or caboose as they call it on the continent. I believe the JNR designation for this is, I don't know if it's pronounced YO 8000. And these came into service in about 1974. So it kind of vaguely suits my era that I'm interested in for my layout. And again, like the tankers, the reason this was a bit of a bargain, you've probably noticed it, is the whole rear gantry or floor plate is missing with the railings. It should be the same back and front here. So I'm going to have to somehow replace these railings on the back. Now, I did think about having to go at 3D printing them, but I don't think my FDM printer is up to the job, and I certainly don't want to be playing about trying to scratch build these from styrene. So I'm going to have a little bit of think about this, of how I'm going to make this repair. But it's still a very good bargain because these little caboose are rather expensive. It doesn't light up like the other one that I got earlier, but it's still a lovely little model, and it'll go very nicely once it's repaired with this oil wagon train. So that was great. And next, again, sent down by my brother, who found this, but in this particular case there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. It came boxed, pristine, and it's a long wheelbase freight wagon. And I don't know if you can notice that, but it already comes with a complement of rails. So it's a rail maintenance wagon, which is fantastic because I've already made up a little rail maintenance train based on a crane wagon that I bought some time ago. So this will be fantastic, even if I place it round my layout just as for display on an area that's having some real maintenance done. But it'll make up a lovely maintenance train as well. So there we go. That's the little rolling stock additions to my collection. Obviously, bit of work to do on these ones, but this is lovely, and I'll look forward to attaching this to my rail maintenance train, and I'll try and put up a little clip of that running. And finally, for this edition of my mail call, we're going to look at some buildings. I think it's about time that I actually start thinking about how I'm going to populate the centre section of my layout. Obviously, my whole layout will be based around a little Japanese hamlet. So I thought it was about time that I actually started getting some buildings. I obviously have scratch built a couple of buildings myself, a garage and a station, but I was really a bit nervous about trying to scratch build some Japanese architecture without a reference model. So that's what these are really about. So let's start off by looking at this particular model, which is the Kato Diatown 23452 corner shop with traditional eaves. So let's just break this open and have a wee look at it, because it is lovely. It's traditional, is it Showa period? That was under the period of Emperor Hirohito, who died in 1989. And as you can see, it's a lovely traditional Japanese building, little backyard there. And as usual with these Diatown buildings, I believe this all comes to bits, so you can install lighting if you want to. But the main thing about this particular one, as I say, it's a corner shop, so it comes with rather a lot of additional accessories for the building, and this wonderful set of stickers that gives you a wide range of commercial signs for this particular shop. Now, that which brings up kind of like a little hiccup in all this, as it's fairly obvious, I do not speak Japanese at all, or read or write Japanese. It's why I decided to take on doing a Japanese layout when I didn't have at least a basic knowledge of Japanese. I don't know, because in this particular case, it's really hamstrung me, because everything on the Kato packaging, apart from the titles of course, comes in Japanese. There's no translation in a paper manual. I'll have to look on the internet to see if anyone has any idea about what any of these particular emblems mean, or signage means, before I actually apply them to this building. But the main hiccup was, it was nothing to do with the signage. It was to do with the fact that this building is so traditional, which I kind of wanted, but I had an idea that this would be my reference model on which I would base a lot of scratch built models myself to make up the rest of my town. Unfortunately, as you can see, the windows and the doorways on this particular building are a bit Spartan, and it didn't really give me much of a clue to 1970s commercial buildings and how to build them. I mean, I can get some photo reference, of course, but that was really the reason I bought this. Well, I meant to buy a model so I could get some reference. So I ended up buying a second model. I mean, they are lovely, these Kato Diatown buildings, but this is what I really should have bought in the first place, which is a more modern 1970s era commercial building, which gives me plenty of reference points to actually take measurements from to do any of my scratch builds. So I'll just bring this out, let you have a look at this. God, we're getting so much stuff all over the place here. Should have gone for a bigger table. Right, there you go. So that was a bit better. This is what I was really after and what I should have gone for in the first place. As you can see, it's a modern commercial building, and there's plenty of reference points for me to get measurements for, and it's just a nice building. I really like this, and I envisaged that in my little hamlet in the centre of my layout, I'd have a little short street of this type of commercial building. Again, it kind of goes back to my liking of the Japanese animated movie Spirited Away, where they enter that little magical town with all the little shops, and I kind of wanted a little street of Japanese shops like this. Obviously, it'll have to be very small because it is a little hamlet that I'm actually making. But anyway, it's made a nice starter set of Japanese buildings for me to then work on myself as I scratch build the rest of my little hamlet. So I'm really pleased with this. This one already comes with signage on, phew, so I don't have to worry about working out what the Japanese, I believe it's kanji, the style of lettering there. I don't have to work out what that actually means in this particular case. That's all done for me. I like the colours of this particular one. It's a bit bare on the inside. When I built my little gas station, I went to some effort to build a reasonable inside internal features, you know, the shop itself. These don't, but I don't think anybody will notice at that particular distance. So anyway, that's the start, but that's not where it finished, because I just happened to be trawling the internet and I came across this little model from Outland Models. Now this is Chinese firm, and they 3D print little N-gauge models, and it was quite cheap. So I thought, hey, what the hell? I actually ordered this before I ordered that, because the idea at the time was if I got this little cheap one, it would give me a lot of the measurements that I would actually need to make any further scratch buildings, because of course it all comes in parts like this, and it's easy for me to take the measurements of like doorways, windows, and all this sort of thing. So I have to put this little model together. But in the meantime, I hadn't sort of clicked that this was a Chinese firm, and that it would take several weeks for this to arrive from China. And being the sort of I don't like waiting, and in the meantime I saw this model on sale online, so that's why I bought this one. So both of these serve the same purpose. It's to kind of give me some reference measurements for me to build my own scratch build buildings. Let's have a look. Yeah, that fits inside. So it all comes in bits like this. Now what I have to say, although this was very cheap, this Outland Models thing, there's a reason it's cheap, and you can probably tell already that it's very poorly 3D printed. So this was a bit of a disappointment, and a total it's the other side of the coin for this, from this beautiful Kato model, and the reason you pay the money you do for Kato models. This little Chinese 3D print is a bit of a disaster, really. It does give me all the measurements I want, and it, in a way, it gives me a little project to see if I can actually build this model up to make it look a bit better. I'll probably get rid of some of the features on it, repair some of this terrible printing that's gone on here, and we'll see if we can turn it into something that will sit nicely beside this Kato model on my street of shops. And there we go. Oh, apart from one thing. Oh, sorry, this is getting a bit of a mess now. I just clear up all this stuff. One final thing, and that goes to the sawmill that I'm making at the moment. Now, I don't know if you remember, I watched my previous episode where I made this little sawmill here. I was a bit disappointed about that because it was a lot smaller than I expected, and so in the end was not really suitable for the kind of little industrial centre that I had in mind. I wanted a bit bigger sawmill. But in the same series, this particular company, MMR Models, did this. It's a timber drying barn. I thought, oh yeah, now I could use one of those. So I ordered that. It comes like in this flat packed laser cut kit like this, but it looks just the job. I don't know if you can see this, and this is the main reason I got it. It's all vented. It's a proper drying barn, and this will work perfectly with what I have in mind for my sawmill. So I couldn't help but purchase that as well. So that's it. That's my kind of range of little buildings that finish off this. It's not a month's purchases here, of course. This is a collection I've been building up over about 3 months or so. So don't think that I buy this amount of stuff all the time. I don't. And again, a lot of this I have to thank the generosity of my brother, who picks up these lovely bargains on eBay for me. But there you go. I'll leave you just looking at these lovely Kato buildings. Absolutely superb.